covering today, Max?
We're talking rest and relaxation
Ah,
because I need to practice.
fair
I've
enough.
not been very good at it, to be honest, and mostly because where I think like where often the challenge lies for me is that my head won't shut up.
Hmm.
And so then it's really difficult to switch. And I think we all have this as business owners, right? Like there's so much going on. And then and even like sometimes when you step away and then suddenly you have like a good idea. And then, before you know it, you've like typed 4,000 words in a new fucking website because you got excited and you
Yep.
went down a rabbit hole.
We
Um,
love talking about it. Yeah.
I did this recently where I had like a really good idea, and then I just like at the end of the weekend, which I don't really know what happened, but I'd written like 4,000 words in like foundational documentation. I've put
Hmm.
like, and it's super, and then and obviously I was so tired because I'd worked the whole weekend that I then didn't have any actual energy to implement any of it yet.
Hmm.
So I'm learning. I was going to say I'm trying, but no, I'm learning to actually relax more.
Hmm.
And there's a couple of things that I know that work really well for me. Like I do jigsaws a lot because it's like enough to keep me occupied, but not so much that I have to really use a lot of cognitive power. So that's definitely a way that I try and switch off a little bit. And I mean, this might surprise you, but I like the process of creating a bigger picture
Hmm.
out of little pieces. I'm a storyteller that should, you know, it's kind of part of what I do anyway. But obviously I have the dog, so I take walks and stuff. But what are stuff that, things that you do too?
Well, I think when I experienced burnout, like God, years and years and years ago, and that's when I realized that when I was in downtime, I was still working. And so, I vaguely remember someone asking me this in some networking, introduction. It's like, what do you do in your downtime? And I said, well, I work. And I couldn't think of anything else. Like, seriously, I was just going, what the hell of an answer is that? But I do enjoy work. And that was also the problem was when I was enjoying it, I would do a lot more of it. But the problem was I didn't have an off switch. So,
Um,
and I would watch TV shows whilst I was working because I
oh,
didn't
I
count.
always do, I always do this.
Yeah.
I have, and I think this is a thing as well. Like when we're in that space, like we're just constantly sort of distracting ourselves and providing input and noise and da 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 da. And it means that really our brain is not having downtime at all.
Hmm.
And this is also where I notice that I need the downtime more is when I can't, because I often then also find that when I'm just sitting on the sofa watching telly, I'm also doing shit on my phone. And I'm also because I can't focus on the one thing. And it just means that my brain is so fried that it can't actually pay attention to anything. So it'll just do 10 things all at once because it's in that sort of
Yeah.
overstimulated state.
Yeah. I could tell you that I'm not entirely sure how to get out of it at home because it's kind of become almost normal, particularly in COVID. And,
Mm.
you kind of you were sort of in this weird state at home all the time because we work from home. It's some people say, oh, I pack everything up and then I'm out of work mode and then I go into home mode. But sometimes it can blend a little bit too much. So, and I'm not woo woo. I don't do yoga or I don't do meditations. It's just my head struggles to have quiet time, but I know that sometimes I do need it. But I sing, and that's something that has given me a place to, sort of switch off from work and just enjoy singing and being creative in that space. And so I find it hard to sing at home. So I tend to go out to sing. So I'll go to someone's
Right.
house or I go to rehearsals and things.
Unfortunately for my neighbors, I love singing at home.
So this is a relatively new thing for you, isn't it? As part of your
Well,
hobby,
it's
I
not. I
guess.
mean, it's a very old thing actually. But I stopped singing for years and years and years.
Yes.
So I'm rediscovering it and being super frustrated that apparently when you don't use your voice for over a decade, it loses some of its ability.
Yeah, that's the practice thing that
I
you kind
know,
of
it's
work
bloody
on.
ridiculous.
But yeah, and I find that having I'll actively stop working now. So I would work all day. So I was sort of almost on corporate hours in a business, my own business. And I find that I give myself permission to actually have a break during the day. So I might not work until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock because I'll go out and have a coffee or something.
Mhm.
Or like today, I went out and went to a business meeting. It was great. And so I really actively tried to put in things into my, into my day that would allow me to almost give myself permission to stop what I was doing and go do something else. And I
I
think
think
that took me a long time to work out how to do.
it was one of the first things that I realized when I started my own business is that we don't actually work 8 hours a day. Because I was like, no, I have to be at my desk at 9 and then work until like, 5 or half past 5. Because obviously I don't pay myself for a lunch break, just the way that an employer wouldn't. Now, but it's and it doesn't work that way. And we don't like when now that I'm back in the office as well, like because I have my job and my business, it like nobody in that office works 8 hours a day. It's impossible. We can't do it. We're having chit chats. We're walking to get a coffee, and then we meet a coworker, and
Yeah.
and we have a chat. That's the normal thing to do. But when we're in our own house, somehow that becomes harder. So that was one of the first things I learned. But also what I really struggled with for a long time, and in part because I monetized a lot of the skills that I developed in hobbies. So suddenly my hobbies were now work.
Mm.
And sometimes as well, like you'll do something and you think it's like completely separated from your work. And then suddenly that gives you an idea about your work. And you're like, shit,
Yeah.
now I'm working again. I wasn't supposed to work.
Yeah. I get very inspired when I have downtime, but it also then sparks the work ideas. And then, suddenly I'm in this loop of doom because I've taken time off to have a rest. And then my brain goes, aha.
We have space to think of things. I know, it's so
And
annoying
and
sometimes.
sometimes you can't stop it. So it's like, right, pen, recording, what am I doing?
This is one of the reasons that and I know that Tony frowns upon me working during my
Mhm.
during my holidays, but in part I do this because like I cannot come back to an inbox that has exploded because it just I'll have hundreds and hundreds of emails. I don't really want that. So I'll try and stay on top of my email a little bit while I'm away from work. But also I give myself that moment to just record some of the ideas I have. Yeah, like and it's work stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, if I find a place to put it,
Mhm.
an hour over coffee in the morning, I'll just quickly go through my emails. I won't answer emails, but at least I will just sort them into. I don't like all the newsletters. I can just like I don't read them during my holiday. I'm not going to read them after because I won't have the time because new ones are coming in, right?
Yeah.
Like, so those just go. And it just means that I only have emails that I actually have to answer at the end of my holiday. That helps. And also, it just gives me that moment in the morning where I can just go, like, okay, what are the ideas that I've had in the past sort of 24 hours? Let me just get those down on paper. And then I can go and relax again because I know that tomorrow I'll have another moment where I can write stuff down. I don't have to hold it all in my brain for the whole duration of my trip. And it just, to me, that's helpful to then create space where I can relax more outside of the time that um, that I
Yeah.
spend on my business during my
Yeah.
time to relax.
Yeah. I wonder how for workaholics, how downtime plays into life, because I've seen people who just seem to go all the time, and they'll travel and then they'll come back and they'll land, and like 2 hours later they're in something else, and just their life is this continual rotation of
I
busy.
think those people need to get some help.
But I was in that space when I was working with the NGO that I suffered burnout from, because it just was this treadmill of, you just have to keep going, keep doing more. This is really important. We need to keep going. And that level of responsibility that you sometimes take on, like it wasn't a responsibility I should have taken, but it's one that kind of kept getting pushed back to me, how important this was. And I wonder sometimes if people do take on far too much responsibility for their clients, that then does make them worry. It sort of, I used to do this all the time. I'd be thinking all the time about the client's needs, and not really taking enough care of myself. And I would, I'd strategize about options for clients, for new work and all this sort of stuff. And they'd almost be dismissive of it. And I'd be like, so I've spent hours and hours kind of going through the pros and cons, and, sort of thinking through, will this work? What's the options? All of this sort of stuff. And it was just not even considered, a welcome thing from the clients. And I'm like, I would get tangled up in that sort of cycle of, because that's just the way my brain works, like curiosity, and I want to do well. And I found that some clients, I would do that a lot, and it would stress me out. With others, they didn't want that approach. They wanted something else, and they would openly say, this is what we want from you. I found that was much easier to sort of be able to step away from it at the end of the day and go, well, they've told me this is okay, to not, you know, to be able to walk away from it and not stress about it. But
Well,
yeah, it
I
used to
think,
really frustrate me that I couldn't turn it off.
well, and I think that, and this is a process that I think both you and I have been going through in the last sort of year and a half, where we realize this is how I need, and it's boundaries, right? Like this is how I
Mhm.
need to boundary what I do, because I used to be in a place where I was like, well, I'm creating all these deliverables for people, and then I don't, and then they're not using it. I spent, I poured my soul into creating all this stuff for people, and then it just sits on their shelf, and that I find that very frustrating. And so I am I'm developing ways to work with people where I can give what I have to give, but I don't have to witness them not using it, because I know that that just hurts me, right? Like, and that's going to create stress, and it's going to reduce my joy in the work that I do. And
Mhm.
I think this is like, maybe even before we think about what do we do to rest or to recharge, is like, how do we prevent unnecessary energy leaks within our business? And I think that is such an important thing to look at. Like, even when I said, like, even when I'm away, I'll spend that hour a day, because I know it will prevent energy from leaking the rest of the day. So so that's so that it's a smart time investment on my part, right? And I think that this is something that we maybe as business owners don't look at a lot. Is like, where in my business am I losing energy, and how can I prevent that from happening? Does it mean I have to change how I approach the work? Does it mean I have to get a VA? Does it mean I have to, like, there's 100 ways that you might plug that hole. You have to find the places where you lose your energy, so that you don't need as much recharging.
Mhm.
Because it's not, you're not in a job. And even in a job, like, even if you're in a job, figure out where you're leaking energy and have a conversation with them about it, because your employer should also want you to not need to sleep off a migraine every weekend because you're exhausted.